Prosecutors say that the man accused of killing a Minnesota lawmaker and wounding another went to the homes of two other lawmakers to carry out more carnage on the night of the shootings. But one of the other lawmakers wasn't home, and the suspect left the other's house after police had arrived. That's according to acting U.S. Attorney Joseph Thompson. The suspect surrendered to police on Sunday. He is accused of posing as a police officer and fatally shooting state Republican Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark in their home early Saturday. Federal prosecutors have charged Mr. Bolter with murder and stalking. Earlier, I spoke with Andrew Donaldson from OrdinaryTimes.com for more on the shooter.
Andrew, thank you so much for the time today.
Anytime. Always glad to be with you.
Now, what do we know about who the accused targeted and why?
We had a long list of politicians, and some of this is not going to make sense. Now, one thing we always do with these sorts of events is we're trying to make sense, us normal folks that function normally, of somebody who obviously was not normal and not functioning normally, who had turned to political violence, somebody who, now it's pretty clear in his background, had marinated himself into whatever he wanted to feed into his own brain to justify and cause himself to do these things. So we're trying to apply something that is never going to make sense to us to this individual that did this violence. Now, he had a list of lawmakers in Minnesota. The lawmaker that he killed was very prominent, had been a Speaker of the House at that one point. The one he wounded is also a lawmaker, and their spouses. One was killed, one survived. And this would have been worse if it wasn't for the manhunt, and it wouldn't. And the other part of this that we do know that is very disturbing is the fact that he disguised himself as a police officer, right down to having a vehicle that was made out to look like an unmarked police vehicle. This is what is troubling about this, is because he not only had a list of people to target that looked to be very much politically motivated, but tried to find a way in that would be very easy for him to get to people who otherwise would probably be pretty discerning about people getting into his lives by impersonating a police officer.
Now, there's been a lot of controversy over elected officials jumping to conclusions too quickly, specifically Senator Mike Lee. Can you explain to us what he said and what the response to what he said has been?
It wasn't just what he said. He had on multiple social media posts. Now, we don't know for sure if that was him personally or his social media intern or a member of his staff or whatever, but he didn't walk any of it back. And this is part of his brand. He has constantly over the last few years become more and more very online, very much inflammatory in his rhetoric. And this was way past the line. And I'm not going to repeat what he said here. Folks can look that up on his own. But it was pretty unfit for office kind of stuff. Any normal person should probably resign over. He won't, because he enjoys this. But he is just endemic of what's going on with a lot of this. As soon as this news broke, there was almost this feeding frenzy for one side of the political spectrum to make sure this person belonged to the other side of the political spectrum. And some of that is just the media environment we live in. But it was pretty gross, frankly. And it was trying to adhere blame on a political motive to who this person was before we even found out who it was. And again, even if his political motives fit into the narrative, that doesn't mean in his mind that's why he was doing it, and it shouldn't be applied to wider movements. This is dangerous stuff. And when elected officials delve into it, it makes it even more dangerous, because now all it takes for somebody to radicalize isn't a cell or a group of people. All they got to do is have a cell phone or social media, and they can radicalize themselves. And when they see prominent politicians doing it, I think we should condemn them pretty strongly, because that's just going to make this situation far, far worse for the next time.
Now, we've learned that the suspect didn't just stop at the two homes that he visited. He allegedly targeted two other lawmakers that same night. So what implications of the law enforcement and public figures does this put to their security?
This is a huge problem. Obviously, members of Congress and people that are in elected office at the state level are going to want more and more security. But when you start thinking about legislators at the state level, and most states have two houses, a Senate and a House of Delegates, or an assembly. Some only have one. You're talking about tens of thousands of people. The idea that you're going to have physical security 24/7 for all of these people is probably not practical. So they're scared, and justifiably so. And then you have members of Congress demanding more security for them. They're even more high profiled. Senators are more high profiled. And we've already seen at the highest levels, Donald Trump's been having two assassination attempts, one that came millimeters from being effective, and a man was killed in that attempt. This is serious stuff, but it also goes to prove the limits of physical security, that you just can't cover everybody all the time. The president, you can, they still got to him. These local legislators, they're going to have to learn how to deal in this environment now. They're going to probably have to take some accountability for their own physical security. And again, it goes back to what this guy does, where he's impersonating a police officer. That's a very scary thing, especially in the modern era where we have police officers not wanting to identify themselves so that they get doxxed and not wanting to be part of the political machine themselves. But at the same time, you got to be able to know that somebody is who they are. This is pretty heavy stuff that we as a society are going to really have to wrangle with, and lawmakers are going to have to figure out how to get some laws and regulations to apply to them.
Now, I want to shift gears a little bit to what we're going to expect next. So, given the serious nature of the crimes, murder, attempted murder, stalking, is the death penalty or life without parole on the table in either jurisdiction?
Not in the jurisdictions. Federal has death penalty, and there's going to be federal charges added onto this. Once this gets into court, these initial charges, they always add more onto it as they go along. I don't know if they'll get it to a death penalty case. We will see high profile stuff. The federal will probably try to push for it. We'll see. They'll probably try to cut some kind of deal with this guy. We will see. But it brings up an excellent point. When you already have a mess in this country with things like the death penalty, are you going to try to have some legislation, some extra layer, like a hate crime legislation, but are you going to target civilians? We've seen this with police officers where states have started bringing in additional penalties, even the death penalty for attacking police officers. Are we going to start doing that with elected politicians? That's kind of a dangerous road to go down legally and morally, but I think you're going to hear a cry for it. And with people doing stuff like this, it's going to be hard to fight against that.
And with additional charges, do you think that we could see a federal terrorism enhancement or domestic terrorism designation in this case?
I think the federals is very likely to put something really splashy on top of this to try to take over this case in a lot of ways. Let's keep the eye on the ball here, though. People being targeted politically, murder's bad enough. Politically targeted murder because of something somebody read on the internet and got themselves radicalized is even worse. I think it's a pretty foregone conclusion that the federal level is going to try to put something really flashy on this to try to make an example of it.
Well, Andrew, thank you for the time today.
Thank you very much, Theresa.